Hello, I'm Liz Lumley of Finextra, and today I'm speaking to Martin Overton of IBM, and we're going to talk about security breaches. So, my first question for you really is, you've had a security breach, now what? How do you respond?
Okay, I think the first thing is basically not to run around like a headless chicken. Don't basically go into panic mode, because what actually happens is you tend to cause more damage. You destroy evidence, which we quite often see in cases where we have to go and unpick the extra activity that the customer has done trying to fix their own problems. So that's the first thing not to do. Normally we would actually arrange a triage call with the customer. So what we would do is then is actually get their relevant technical people and their management people together and discuss exactly what they're seeing. Try to get as much information out of them as possible to understand what type of threat they're seeing, and also give them something actionable they can take and use straight away. I mean, the reason I actually say they shouldn't do anything on their own system straight away is mainly because they trample over the data, they cause damage, and to use an analogy, it's a bit like, let's say, a major music festival. It's been raining for a week, there have been thousands of people trampling around in the mud, and you're trying to identify one set of footprints. By doing the stuff and trying to fix the things themselves, they're actually causing more damage than helping themselves. They should pass it over to somebody who actually really understands what they're doing.
So I had a bit of a follow-up question for you before we go into what you do after you respond. But what are these time scales when you mentioned the triage call? Like what's the length of time that you
Usually the triage is as soon as the customer calls us, within an hour we're on the phone with them, with their relevant people that they need to get together. As I say, it's not just management staff we want. We also want the technical staff who understand their infrastructure. There'll be people like myself actually on the call discussing in deep technical terms exactly what they're experiencing, to try and understand what type of breach it's been and how we can get them back into business as quickly as possible without destroying any evidence, and how we can secure that evidence. And from securing the evidence, what we normally recommend that people do is not to tamper with it, because obviously that is exactly what we're trying to stop them from doing. So we would get them to do things like dump volatile memory. So we have a memory snapshot, because a lot of things you can find directly in memory. We also get them to ideally capture disk images, so they are forensically sound, and we follow normal chain of custody best practices. So we have that information, so it's actually in a secured state, so we know what to do, and we know that if we go back to it, we can say with 100% certainty that is exactly how we received it.
So Martin, I wanted to ask you about instant response plans. I mean, are a lot of these plans inside banks out of date, or how are they used?
There's usually three scenarios we see. The first one is the bank or financial institution doesn't have one at all. The second one is that they have one, but it's never been tested. And the third one is it's usually they've got one and it's out of date. So they've got no idea whether it's actually up to date, whether it covers the new threats that have come along since, such as advanced persistent threats. How do they handle that? Is it covered in the existing incident response plan or not? And I think that's really is a big issue. We always suggest that customers actually not only have an incident response plan, but they test it, and usually that's through mock scenarios, tabletop exercises, things like that, to actually test to make sure that all the bits join up correctly when they really need it. It's a bit like having a manual otherwise, and you find you get to the relevant page and the page is missing. What do you do? And this is where we come back to the issue with customers running around like headless chickens because they panic. They don't know, they have got no script to follow.
Mm-hmm. So now that you've not panicked in your response, what should you do next then?
Well, usually the first thing, if you haven't got your own forensic specialist in-house, you should get somebody who actually knows what they're doing. So you contact the relevant people, you freeze the devices that you've got. So let's say the servers, you freeze the servers. So they can be forensically captured, both from a volatile side, so the memory would be dumped, and the hard disk would be imaged. Those can then be secured, and you have a chain of custody. So you can go back and verify that the image that you have there is the same one that the forensic investigators are actually working on there and then. So
would you say it's fair to say that there's a bit of a shortage of skills? So I mean, saying that, how does the deployed security intelligence, really support the team then?
Okay, well, when you say deployed intelligence, I assume you're talking about data feeds, that sort of information. As part of the emergency response service that IBM offers, we actually give customers actionable intelligence. So we feed them data through our X-Force threat advisory service, but we also have other threat and intelligence services within IBM's offerings. So we can actually give them usable, actionable data that they can use there and then to actually identify potential attacks that might be coming their way, and exploits that may be leveraged against their infrastructure, because they can customize it to their own particular requirements. So it's very, very useful for them. So it's not only just a case we turn up when things go wrong, we can help them to stop things go wrong in the first place. We can also do things like managed incident management. We can do a log analysis, automated as a managed service. We can do managed firewalls, IPS systems, the whole lot.
So to kind of sum up, your advice is don't panic,
Yes.
don't destroy the evidence,
Yes.
and work to prevent it happening in the future.
And obviously, once you get to the point where you've actually secured the evidence, if you then have to go down the law enforcement line, you actually have to report it to the local law enforcement or to an industry body, then you have something you can pass over for further judicial review.
Excellent. Martin, thank you very much.
Thank you.